I never thought my service to this country would be mocked, let alone by the very people who claim to value community and respect. But that's exactly what happened when the HOA president, a woman everyone in the neighborhood calls Karen, decided my veteran status was nothing more than a joke. From the very first day I moved into this neighborhood, I carried myself with pride. I had worn the uniform, I had carried the weight of duty, and I had returned home with scars that no one could see but me. I wasn't looking for applause. I wasn't asking for recognition. All I wanted was peace, respect, and a place to call home. But the world doesn't always give us what we deserve, and sometimes it places people in our path who will test every ounce of patience we have left. Karen was one of those people. From the outside, she looked like any other homeowner. Neat garden, polished smile, loud opinions about everything that wasn't her business. But behind that mask was a heart filled with bitterness, a voice filled with mockery, and a presence that poisoned the air of every gathering. And for reasons I may never fully understand, she chose me as her target. The first time she mocked me, it was subtle. A passing comment at the mailbox. A smirk when she saw the small American flag I placed in front of my porch. "Oh, how patriotic," she said with a tone dripping in sarcasm. I brushed it off. I had dealt with worse. In war, you learn not to let every bullet hit your soul. But still, the sting was there. Because when someone disrespects what you've given your life to, it cuts deeper than words should ever be able to. Weeks went by, and her remarks grew sharper. She laughed when she saw my old army boots sitting outside. She rolled her eyes when I spoke about helping organize a community charity drive. And then came the day she crossed a line I could never forgive. At the HOA meeting, in front of neighbors, she pointed at me and said, "Here comes our so-called hero. Maybe he'll tell us another one of his war stories." The room fell silent. Some people laughed nervously. Others shifted in discomfort. But me? I felt the ground shake beneath me. I had faced enemies overseas, but nothing prepared me for the humiliation of being mocked for the very thing I gave my youth to protect. I wanted to speak. I wanted to shout. But my voice trembled with anger, and instead of unleashing my rage, I stood still. In that moment, I realized something powerful. Silence could be louder than words. My stillness, my refusal to give her the reaction she craved, made her uncomfortable, but it also left me burning inside. That night, I sat alone on my porch. The flag swayed gently in the wind, and I thought about the brothers and sisters I had lost in battle. Would they be mocked too? Would their sacrifices be turned into punchlines by people like her? My heart ached with grief and anger, but also filled with determination. Because one thing I knew for sure, no one mocks a veteran without consequences. Karen thought she had won. She thought she had humiliated me. But what she didn't know was that truth has a way of rising, justice has a way of finding its path, and respect has a way of returning, even when it's denied for a time. The story didn't end with that meeting. In fact, that was just the beginning. I began to notice whispers among my neighbors. Some of them came to me privately, apologizing for what Karen said. They told me they respected my service, that they didn't agree with her, and that they stood with me. It gave me a small comfort, but the pain still lingered. Mockery doesn't fade overnight. Then came the moment that changed everything. I received a letter in the mail. The envelope carried the seal of the United States government. My hand shook as I opened it, not knowing what news it might hold. Inside, I found words that brought tears to my eyes. I was being recognized with a Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration, a symbol of courage, sacrifice, and duty, something no insult, no mockery, no sarcastic remark could ever take away. I sat in silence, holding that letter, as memories of the battlefield flooded back. The nights of fear, the moments of bravery, the faces of the fallen. It wasn't just my medal. It belonged to every soldier who never made a home. And it was proof that what Karen mocked was not a joke. It was a legacy written in blood, sweat, and tears. When word spread to the neighborhood, everything shifted. Neighbors who once looked away now came forward with genuine respect. The same HOA meetings where Karen mocked me now became places where she couldn't meet my eyes. The power she thought she had vanished, because truth had stripped her mask away. Karen tried to act as if nothing happened. She tried to laugh, to pretend she was just joking, but everyone knew the truth. And deep down, she knew she had lost, because respect cannot be forced, but it also cannot be destroyed. The day I was awarded the Medal of Honor, I stood tall. Cameras flashed, hands clapped, and voices cheered. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about fame. I wasn't thinking about proving Karen wrong. I was thinking about the flag, the sacrifices, and the silent promise I made to never let mockery define my story. I share this story not because I seek pity, but because I want others to know this. Your worth is not defined by the voices that try to tear you down. Mockery fades. Insults crumble. But honor, respect, and truth, those last forever. So if you've ever been laughed at, disrespected, or mocked for something you hold dear, remember this. Their laughter does not decide your value. Your actions, your sacrifices, your heart, that is where your true worth lies. And sometimes, life has a beautiful way of turning insults into applause and mockery into medals. The Medal of Honor didn't just change how the world saw me. It changed how I saw myself. For so long, I had carried the weight of silence. I had allowed mockery to echo louder than pride. But holding that medal in my hands, I realized something powerful. No one, not even the loudest voice of disrespect, can take away the truth of who you are. Still, life after the award wasn't smooth. Karen didn't disappear. She lingered like a shadow at the edge of every meeting, every gathering. She tried to downplay what happened, whispering to anyone who would listen that the government just gives those medals away now. It was her last attempt at control. But the difference now was simple. No one believed her anymore. The same neighbors who once chuckled at her remarks now stood firm against her words. They defended me. They corrected her. They told her plainly that she had crossed a line. For the first time, Karen's power crumbled before her own eyes. Because power built on mockery is weak, and respect built on truth is unshakable. But let me be honest, the pain she caused didn't just vanish overnight. Mockery has a way of planting seeds of doubt. Even with the Medal of Honor, there were nights I sat awake, replaying her words in my mind. So-called hero. The phrase echoed like a wound that refused to close. And that's the thing about disrespect. It tries to convince you that you're less than you are, even when the world tells you otherwise. I had to make a choice. I could let her words haunt me, or I could rise above them. And rising above didn't mean ignoring what she did. It meant transforming it into strength. It meant taking the very insults she threw at me and turning them into fuel for something greater. So I started speaking, not just at HOA meetings, but at schools, community events, and veteran organizations. I shared my story openly. The service, the struggles, the mockery, and the honor. And every time I spoke, I saw faces change. Young students who once thought war was just a chapter in a textbook suddenly saw it through the eyes of someone who lived it. Parents who struggled with respect at their own workplaces nodded with tears in their eyes. Veterans who carried their own silent wounds came up to me, shook my hand, and whispered, "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." Karen hated it. She hated that my voice grew stronger. She hated that her mockery had failed. But her hate didn't matter anymore. Because when you find your purpose, the noise of critics becomes nothing more than background static. And here's the most powerful part. Eventually, even Karen changed. It didn't happen quickly. It didn't happen easily. But over time, as she saw the respect others gave me, as she saw the way my story inspired people, something in her began to shift. One evening, after another HOA meeting, she approached me. Her voice was quiet, almost broken. She said, "I shouldn't have said those things. I was wrong." I looked at her and saw not the enemy I had built up in my mind, but a human being who had let bitterness control her. Forgiveness wasn't easy, but I gave it, not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Holding on to anger only weighs you down, and I had already carried enough weight in my life. That forgiveness freed me. It allowed me to move forward without the shadow of her words pulling me back. And it taught me something I want everyone listening to hear. Sometimes the greatest victory is not proving your enemy wrong, but proving to yourself that you can rise without hate. Neighbors began to look at me differently, not just as a veteran, but as someone who stood strong in the face of humiliation and turned into honor. The The same community that once laughed nervously at Karen's remarks now stood proudly beside me. Together, we built events to honor other veterans. We raised flags in memory of the fallen. We created scholarships for children of service members. Out of mockery grew a movement of respect. And you know what? That's life. Sometimes the very pain people throw at you becomes a seed of something beautiful. Sometimes the insult that breaks your heart becomes the foundation of a story that will inspire thousands. To anyone listening, maybe you've been mocked for your dreams, disrespected for your values, or laughed at for standing strong in what you believe. Maybe someone tried to make you feel small because your courage made them uncomfortable. Let me tell you this. You are not defined by their laughter. You are defined by your strength, your resilience, and the truth of who you are. If I had let Karen's word become my truth, I would have been crushed. But instead, I chose to rise. And rising didn't just give me peace, it gave me purpose. So here's my challenge to you. When someone mocks you, don't let it break you. Let it sharpen you. When someone disrespects your worth, don't argue with them. Prove them wrong by living your truth louder than their lies. And when life puts a Karen in your path, remember, they don't decide your story. You do. The Medal of Honor will always shine as a symbol of sacrifice and bravery, but the real medal, the one no government can give or take away, is the honor of knowing you stood tall when others tried to tear you down. So carry your own medal proudly, whatever it may be. Your courage, your resilience, your story. Don't hide it. Don't let anyone mock it into silence. Wear it on your heart like a badge, because the world needs to see it. And if you ever doubted yourself because of the cruelty of others, let this story be your reminder. You are stronger than their words, braver than their laughter, and worth more than their approval. Stand tall. Speak proudly. Lie boldly. Because in the end, honor is not given by medals or titles, or even applause. Honor is earned by how you live, how you rise, and how you never let mockery dim your light. So if you're hearing this now, let this be your call to action. Rise above, shine brighter, and never forget, your story has the power to inspire the world.